Hi, my name is Kayla and this is Feel Good Murders. Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, I love doing this, so I'm so glad you guys are here. If you're on YouTube, you can see that I'm in a different location. I have guests over right now, so I'm in a weird spot. If you see me like rocking back and forth, it's because I'm in my son's nursery and I'm in the rocking chair. If you're a mom, if you know, you know. I will be getting a really cute like backdrop really soon. It's gonna look really nice, so stick around and see what that looks like. I don't have much more else to go into, so let's get started. Today I'm going to be telling you about 3-year-old Madeleine Mccann, who was a British girl who went missing while on family vacation in Portugal. Madeleine was born Madeleine Beth Mccann on May 12, 2003 in Leicester, England. I probably should have looked that up. I don't know how to pronounce that. But Madeleine Beth Mccann is such a cute name, especially for such a cute little girl. She was adorable. She had blonde hair and just this charming little smile. Her parents were Jerry and Kate Mccann. Jerry was spelled with a G, which I've never seen before, but Jerry and Kate Mccann. And according to the Netflix documentary about this case, they had tried for many years to have a baby and they eventually had Madeleine out of a result of IVF. And then after that, they were blessed with 2 more twins as well. When this case takes place, Madeleine is just 3 years old and it is 2007. Jerry and Kate take Madeleine and the twins on a family vacation. They go to Praia de Luz, Portugal, and they stay at the Ocean Club Resort. So this resort was like a villa-style resort. So they had apartments, they had a pool, they had tennis courts, they had a little kiddie club, which was basically like a daycare for the kids to go to during the day. They went on this vacation with other families, so it seems like it was going to be a really fun getaway. On May 3rd, 2007 at 8:30 p.m., while all of the kids were asleep in their respective apartments, the adults of the group all went out to dinner at a tapas restaurant at the resort. The media would later call this group the Tapas 7. And okay, let me clarify. The apartment that the McCanns stayed at was called 5A, and it was on the ground floor. Right outside of apartment 5A was the pool, and then directly across the pool was the tapas restaurant. So we're literally talking about 55 meters or 180 feet from where the children were asleep to the restaurant. And just to be safe, the adults every 20 or 30 minutes would get up to check on their own children. So they were doing this really often and they had this kind of system in place that they had all agreed on. So the adults are having dinner, they're having a few drinks, they're having a really good time. So at 9:05, it was Jerry's turn to check on the McCann children. So he got up and went over to the apartment, went inside, checked on the children, and as expected, they were both sound asleep. It was said that as he opened the door and looked at his sleeping, beautiful children, he had a proud father moment and felt just how lucky he was to have this life and this children and this nice vacation that they were on. At 9:25, it was then Kate's turn to go check on the McCann children, but one of the friends of the Tapas 7 offered to do it for her. So this person went to the apartment and didn't look inside the bedroom at the children, but he saw a little bit of a light on and he heard a noise that sounded like one of the twins just rolling over in bed. So they called that as good and went back down to the restaurant. Then finally at 10 o'clock, it was then Kate's turn to go check on the children. So she got up from the table, she entered the apartment through the patio door, and when she walked in, she was surprised to find that there were more lights on than she thought, and that the door was more widely open than it was before. So she opened the door to go check on the children, and that is when she found that Madeleine was not in her bed. So, like any mother would do, she immediately sprints into action, and she runs to the tapas restaurant. She sprints to the tapas restaurant, and she's yelling, "Someone's taken Madeleine. Madeleine's gone." So immediately, all of the adults drop their food and drinks. They get up, and they rush to go see what was going on. This obviously caused some commotion around the resort, and so other adults, other guests at the resort began helping to search for Madeleine as well. The police were called and the resort staff were also involved in the search at this point. The initial police force that responded to the scene was the GNR, which is essentially the local patrol police. Around midnight, which is around 2 hours after the local police responded to the scene, they called in help from the Policia Judiciaria. in a lot of sources, they call them PJ. So I'm going to say that, the PJ. The PJ is responsible for major crimes. They're essentially the FBI of Portugal. After investigating that night, police had initially said that they believe that Madeleine was abducted but was still in Portugal, and they believe that she's alive. I don't know what led them to this belief, but that's what they said. So the night goes on and the morning goes on, and they don't find Madeleine. One of the first leads they got in this investigation was from Jane Tanner, one of the Tapas 7. She said that after one of her checks on her own children, at about 9:15 that night, she saw a man carrying a child headed east near the 5A apartment. And I'm going to read the description of this man straight from Wikipedia because it's a lot. So here we go. The child in the man's arms was wearing a light-colored pink pajamas with a floral pattern and cuffs on the legs, similar to Madeleine's. Tanner described the man as white, dark-haired, 5'7", of Southern European or Mediterranean appearance, 35 to 40 years old, wearing gold or beige trousers and a dark jacket, and she said he did not look like a tourist. Now, this whole description that I just told you, police would end up rejecting this statement, saying that Jane had made it up. But there were several other accounts of a man carrying a child that night. Particularly, there was one from a couple, the Smiths, who gave a similar account. The Smiths described a man who was carrying a girl aged 3 to 4. She had blonde hair and pale skin and was wearing light-colored pajamas and had bare feet. The man was mid-30s, 5'7", slim to normal build, with brown hair, wearing cream or beige trousers. So I'm not sure why they rejected Jane's statement when there is others like it, but they did. And remember how I said that Jane said that she saw the man heading east? Well, to police, this was especially important because they thought this man could have been heading to the house of Robert Murat, who would become the first suspect in this case. Okay, so let's go back to Robert Murat. He was the first suspect that the Portuguese police had named. He was 34 years old and he lived in his mother's house about 150 yards from 5A. So in American terms, that is 1.5 football fields because we love to measure things in football fields. Robert apparently had been asking a journalist about this case, and I guess he asked a little bit too much because this guy reported him to the police, and that caused the police to name him as a suspect. Several people reported that they saw Robert near 5A shortly after the disappearance, but that's not necessarily wrong because he lived so close by. But on May 15th, Robert's house was searched extensively. They had dogs sniff through his garden, they drained his pool, they searched his cell phone, his computer, and they found nothing linking Robert to the case. In 2020, investigators began looking at a new suspect when a woman came forward saying that the night before Madeleine's disappearance, her boyfriend said to her, quote, "I have to do a job in Praia da Luz tomorrow. It's a horrible job, but it's something that I have to do and it will change my life. You won't be seeing me for a while." This man that this woman was talking about is Christian Buchner, a 43-year-old German man who was a convicted sex offender. Now, let's go back to around when Madeleine disappeared. To me, this is one of the crazy parts of this whole story. Believe it or not, the media started to suspect Kate and Jerry of wrongdoing, Madeleine's own parents. On June 6, 2007, Kate and Jerry were in a Berlin press conference when a German journalist asked them if they were involved in the disappearance. And I mean, I can't even imagine what that's like, being accused of being involved in your daughter's disappearance. That's gotta be terrible. On June 30th, 2007, a Portuguese newspaper called Sol released a 3,000-word article called The Madeleine Case, A Pact of Silence. This article claimed that there were inconsistencies made by the McCanns in their reports to the police and accused them of being involved in their daughter's disappearance. For some reason, the UK media heard this and ran with it. And because of that, the McCanns were ridiculed in the media. And when things like this happen in the media, we know that things spiral out of control and rumors are started and things just come out that aren't true. For example, the McCanns were even accused of being swingers. The Tapas 7 as a whole were accused of sedating the children and having a quote-unquote pact of silence about this whole thing. The inconsistencies that the media talked about, from what I read, were about which door they walked through, which, Come on, guys. People were also ridiculing Kate because they were saying, well, why would you leave your sleeping twins there and run to the restaurant? Why wouldn't you just use your cell phone to call the rest of the group? To me, it just seems like they're trying to find anything to tear Kate down. So basically, people think that Madeleine died in an accident and the McCanns covered it up. People believed this so much so that on September 5th, 2007, police interrogated Kate and basically said, hey, if you just admit that she died in an accident and you hid her body, you'll get a reduced sentence. You'll only get 2 years. So neither Kate or Jerry confessed, and they were officially listed as suspects in this case. When I was reading about this, I did not see that coming. And even though they were officially listed as suspects, Kate and Jerry were allowed to return to the UK, and the general consensus, like I said, was that there was an accident and the TAPAS 7 covered it up. So basically, Kate and Jerry go home and they live under scrutiny and under investigation. They lived this way until finally on July 21st, 2008, more than a year after Madeleine's disappearance, when the Portuguese Attorney General announced that there was no evidence in this case linking the McCanns or Robert, so they were both officially cleared as suspects. To this day, even though the McCanns and Robert Muret have been cleared as suspects, Christian Buchner does still remain a suspect, and sadly, little Madeleine McCann has never been found. Naturally, people speculate about what happened to Madeleine. Some people think maybe she was abducted from her room. Some people think maybe she got up and left 5A, maybe to go find her parents, and was abducted from the street. Her parents say that they don't think this is likely, but people think maybe it was a robbery gone wrong, and they say that because there was a lot of reports of a few men kind of lurking near the apartment that night, but we don't know what happened to her, and she has now been missing for almost 16 years. So there are a lot of details in this case, and there's also a lot that I left out because I just wanted to give as good of a summary as I could. But if you want to learn more, definitely look it up and or watch the Netflix documentary on this case because it's pretty good. But as I said in the beginning, there is a very specific reason that I wanted to talk about this case. It has come up in the news, and this is interesting, so let me tell you. About 2 weeks ago, an Instagram account called @IamMadeleineMccann started surfacing and posting photos. The person who runs it is a 21-year-old Polish woman named Julia Faustina, and she is saying that she believes she is Madeleine McCann. And here's why she thinks this. So Julia says that she doesn't remember a lot about her childhood, except holidays in a hot place where there was a beach and white or very light buildings with apartments. So that's interesting because the villas or the apartments at the Ocean Club Resort were all white. And Portugal, obviously, is a hot place. So that statement there does line up with the vacation. Julia also says that she's seen the photos of the man that was described to be carrying a child that night that Madeleine went missing. And she says that those sketches look like her abuser. Her abuser, she says, was a German pedophile. And remember that it was believed that Madeleine could have been taken by German pedophile Christian Buchner. Also, I will admit they do look alike. It's entirely possible that Julia looks like what a 21-year-old Madeleine McCann could have looked like. Obviously, we don't know, but they do have similar characteristics, especially looking at childhood photos of Julia and age progressions of Madeleine. They look pretty similar. Now, to me, what is pretty damning about all of this is that Madeleine had a defect in her right eye, which caused there to be a dark spot in the iris of her eye. And Julia has the same defect in the same eye. Julia asked Jerry and Kate if they would agree to a DNA test because she wants answers, and they did agree to this test because they want to leave no stone left unturned when it comes to Madeleine. Obviously, they're her parents. So nothing has come out about this DNA test yet, but better believe I will be on the lookout for that, and I will be telling you guys more on my Instagram. Personally, I'm leaning towards, I don't really think that Julia is Madeleine McCann. It would be really insane if she was, but again, I'll be on the lookout for that. And definitely let me know what you guys think. Comment under YouTube or go on Instagram and send me a message. I would love to talk more about this. And that is the story of the disappearance of 3-year-old Madeleine McCann. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and as always, I hope it distracted you guys from what you have going on in your life right now. I'm so happy you're here, and see you next time. Be good and feel good. Bye!